It was midnight along the Arizona border. A line of dirt and dust cut sharp between shadows and silence. Maya Ramirez pressed her hand against the cold steel of her flashlight, eyes adjusting to the half-light of a moonless sky. The desert wind whistled, dry and biting, rattling through mesquite and bone-dry grass. There were 5 agents on this sweep, boots crunching quietly as they moved in loose formation. Radios clipped silent, nerves strung tight as wire. Every sound, distant howl, brush of wind, echoed with threat. Maya led the line. She always did. There was something about her that inspired trust. A quiet focus, a steady calm even when things went sideways. She wasn't the tallest or the loudest, but she had grit that went deeper than scars. Her past life as a field medic taught her how to make decisions in chaos, how to spot trouble before it found you. They were hunting for movement. Maybe a lost traveler. Maybe smugglers. Maybe something worse. What Maya didn't know, couldn't know, was that the real threat was already inside her circle. A faint whisper crackled in her earpiece, almost lost under the wind. "Maya, shift east. Someone's breaking cover by the ridge." She froze, scanning her team. Jenkins, stoic as ever, watched her back. Riley, the rookie, was jumpy, fingers drumming on his vest. And then there was Daniels, older, edges worn raw from too many years on night patrol. He gave her a nod, too quick, too eager. Maya felt a flicker of doubt. She gestured silently, and they fanned out, closing on the ridge. Her heart pounded. Something felt wrong. The air grew thick, the scent of sage giving way to something metallic. Sweat chilled on her skin. A shadow darted. Maya's pulse spiked, and she signaled for Jenkins to circle wide. She crept forward, boots soft on sand, breath slow and measured. "Freeze," she hissed, flashlight sweeping. But what met her wasn't a desperate migrant or a coyote. It was Daniels, his face half-lit, eyes hard. Before she could react, a sharp pain sliced through her arm. A stun gun. She staggered, vision swimming, as Jenkins shouted, "Daniels, what the—" Too late. Jenkins went down hard, tackled from behind by Riley, who'd dropped the rookie act. "Sorry, boss," Riley sneered, zip-tying Jenkins's hands. Maya tried to rise, body numb. "You—" Daniels leaned close, breath reeking of old coffee. "Orders changed. You talk too much, Ramirez." She was outnumbered, unarmed, and alone. They yanked her arms behind her back, plastic cuffs biting into her wrists. She twisted, kicking at Riley, but Daniels slammed a boot into her ribs. "Stop struggling. No one's coming for you." Maya gritted her teeth, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a scream. The other agents, faces she'd trusted, stood by, blank and complicit. "This is wrong. You're all—" Daniels stuffed a rag in her mouth, silencing her protest. "You should have kept your head down." They dragged her into the scrub, tossing her against a patch of rocks like garbage. Daniels knelt, cutting her radio and dumping her gear. "No one's gonna find you. By the time the sun's up, you'll be just another story out here." Footsteps crunched away. Maya lay twisted on her side, wrists burning, heart slamming. The desert stretched endless and empty, cold settling deep into her bones. Stars wheeled overhead, distant, indifferent. For a long time she lay still, listening to the wind and the frantic stutter of her own breath. The pain sharpened as adrenaline faded. She tested the cuffs, too tight, plastic biting. She tried to work her mouth free, but the rag only made her gag. If she screamed, would anyone hear? Only coyotes and ghosts. She remembered what her grandmother once said years ago as they walked near the border. "El desierto no olvida." The desert doesn't forget. Maya gritted her teeth, rolling onto her back. The moon rose, painting everything in silver and shadow. She could feel her body cooling, muscles cramping. Fear gnawed at her, cold and relentless. A distant howl. Closer, brush stirred. Maya tensed. Was it Daniels coming back to finish the job? Or something wild, drawn by her helplessness? The shadows deepened. Then, a new sound. A low, rolling snort. The heavy exhale of a large animal. Maya's eyes darted. Emerging from the darkness was a Mustang, its coat black as midnight, mane tangled with burrs. The horse moved with eerie quiet, nostrils flaring as it sniffed the air. Maya's pulse leaped. Was this real? She blinked hard, trying to focus. The horse stepped closer, gaze sharp and unafraid. It circled her, hooves silent in the sand. "Go on, get out of here," Maya tried to whisper, voice muffled by the rag. The horse just watched her, head cocked. Then, with a suddenness that made her heart stutter, it dropped to its knees beside her, teeth working at the plastic binding her wrists. It took minutes, an eternity. Maya bit down on the pain, willing herself not to lose consciousness. Then, with a sharp snap, the binding gave. Maya gasped, wriggling free, tearing the rag from her mouth. She looked at the Mustang, at Raven, awed and bewildered. "Thank you," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. The horse stayed beside her, a silent sentinel as the night deepened. The desert colder, and hope, against all odds, began to flicker once more. Maya's wrists throbbed where the plastic cuffs had cut into her skin, but she barely noticed the pain. Adrenaline burned through her veins, and her breath came in ragged gulps. The desert was no place for mercy, and with every minute that passed, the cold crept deeper into her bones. She huddled close to Raven, the Mustang's warm body a barrier against the merciless wind. His coat was rough, tangled with twigs and dust, but he radiated a quiet strength, unbroken, watchful. She took quick stock of her situation. No radio, no gun. Her phone was gone, probably smashed and discarded by Daniels and Riley. There was no moon to light her path, only the scattered glitter of stars and the wavering silhouette of cacti. She pressed her palm to her ribs, wincing at the sharp pain from Daniel's kick. Breathing hurt, but nothing felt broken. Not yet. Maya looked at Raven, his eyes deep and unfathomable. "You shouldn't be here. Go on, get out of here." But the horse remained by her side, ears flicking back and forth, alert for threats she couldn't see. When she tried to stand, Raven nudged her gently, as if urging her forward. She staggered to her feet, head spinning. If Daniels and the others realized she was gone, they'd be back. She needed to put distance between herself and the ambush site, and she needed to move fast. The cold would kill her before dawn if she stayed put. "All right," she whispered, voice raw. "Let's go." Raven moved with uncanny confidence, weaving through the low scrub and jagged rocks. Maya followed, trusting his instincts more than her own battered senses. Each step was agony, her legs weak and trembling, but stopping wasn't an option. Somewhere behind her, the coyotes howled again, their cries rising and falling like a warning. They walked for what felt like hours, the landscape shifting around them. Dry creek beds, stands of brittle ocotillo, ancient saguaro cacti casting monstrous shadows. At one point, the flicker of headlights swept the horizon. A border patrol drone, its sensors scanning the sand for heat signatures. Maya dropped to the ground, pressing herself flat. Raven stood perfectly still, blending into the darkness as if he belonged to it. The drone passed, a faint hum in the silent night. Maya's heart hammered in her chest, every muscle tense. Had Daniels set the patrols searching for her? Or would they just let her die out here, another lost soul swallowed by the desert? She pushed the thought away. "Keep moving," she muttered, gritting her teeth, The thirst started as a dry ache in her mouth, then bloomed into a fierce, burning need. Her lips cracked, her tongue thick as sandpaper. She searched her pockets for anything useful, nothing but a crumpled stick of gum, which she chewed just to create a little saliva. Her vision blurred at the edges, and the world tilted. Raven stopped, lowering his head to nudge her shoulder, and she realized she'd been swaying on her feet. "Don't let me go down," Maya whispered. "Not now." They moved slower, but they moved. The ground sloped downward, and Maya clung to Raven's mane, letting the horse guide her. In the far distance, coyotes yipped, closer than before. A chill ran down Maya's spine. Predators could smell weakness, and tonight she was nothing but blood and fear. Suddenly, Raven halted, nostrils flaring. Maya's heart skipped. Was there someone up ahead? She dropped low, scanning the dark, but saw nothing. Raven pawed at the earth, unearthing a shallow depression. Maya knelt beside him, fingers trembling, and felt damp sand. She dug deeper, hands numb, and miraculously uncovered a patch of cold, muddy water, a relic of last week's rainstorm, barely more than a puddle. She cupped her hands, drinking greedily, then offered the rest to Raven, who drank in measured gulps. "You're a miracle," she said softly, wiping her mouth. Her strength returned, just enough to keep going. As the sky lightened toward dawn, streaks of pale orange brushing the horizon, Maya's hope flickered. They crested a low ridge, and below, half buried in the sand, was the outline of an old ranger outpost. Windows broken, paint blistered by the sun, but walls still standing. Relief threatened to buckle Maya's knees. She hurried down the slope, Raven at her heels. The door was jammed, but she shouldered it open, collapsing inside. The air smelled of dust and old firewood. There was a rusted cot in the corner, and on the wall, a faded map of the borderlands. She scanned the room. No sign of recent occupants, just the evidence of long abandonment. Raven followed, nostrils flaring. Maya searched the cabinets. Nothing but spiderwebs and the husk of a long-dead scorpion. On the shelf, she found a battered radio. She flicked the switch, static roaring in her ears. Her hands shook as she tuned, praying for a signal. "This is Agent Maya Ramirez," she rasped into the receiver. "I need assistance. Ranger Outpost 36, injured. Request immediate evac." Static. Then, a faint, crackling voice. Barely audible, but enough. "Agent Ramirez, confirm location. Do you copy?" "I copy," she breathed. "Please hurry." Her strength failed. She dropped the radio, sliding down to the cold concrete floor, vision dimming at the edges. Raven stood over her, his breath warm on her face as everything faded to black. Outside, the desert was waking, and far in the distance, trouble was already stirring. Patrols, drones, and the men who'd left her for dead. But inside that battered outpost, Maya and Raven had found something they hadn't expected. One brief, precious moment of safety. The fight was far from over. When Maya came to, the world was soft and blurry. For a moment, she thought she was a child again, safe in her grandmother's adobe house, sunlight slanting through gauzy curtains. But the light here was harsh, filtering in through a cracked window and painting strange patterns across the battered ceiling. Her head ached, and every muscle screamed in protest as she tried to move. The taste of dust and metal lingered in her mouth, a reminder of everything she'd survived the night before. She blinked, struggling to sit up. The walls around her were old cinder block, plastered with faded maps and curling photographs. Faces of rangers and agents from decades past, some smiling, some unsmiling, all staring out with a haunted kind of pride. A battered cot creaked beneath her as she shifted. Someone had wrapped her ribs with practiced hands, and a faded blanket was draped over her shoulders. Maya's gaze snapped to the far side of the room, where a heavy-set woman in a grease-stained apron stood over a pot, stirring something that smelled of beans and coffee. The woman's hair was iron gray, pulled back into a tight braid, and her eyes, sharp as cactus spines, studied Maya without a trace of fear. "So you're awake," the woman said, voice low and even. "Good. Wasn't sure you'd make it through the night, honestly. You Border Patrol folks think you're bulletproof, but the desert's got its own rules." Maya tried to answer, but her throat was dry. The woman poured water from a dented kettle into a tin cup and handed it over. Maya drank, the cool liquid reviving her just enough to ask, "Who? Where am I?" "Gloria Sanchez," the woman replied, setting the cup aside. "I cook for the Rangers. I've been at this outpost longer than the paint on these walls. Someone found you collapsed at the door, rambling about radios and Mustangs." Maya's heart jolted. "Raven." She looked around, fear spiking. "The horse. Is he?" Gloria arched a brow. "Horse? There's no horse. Not in here, at least. You must be seeing things. The desert'll do that, you know." Maya bit her lip, hiding her relief and her suspicion. Had Raven slipped away? Or had Gloria seen him and chosen not to say anything? Either way, Maya decided to keep Raven's presence a secret. For now. She didn't know who she could trust. She shifted, the pain in her side flaring. Gloria noticed, fetched a battered first aid kit, and checked Maya's bandages with practiced efficiency. Her touch was gentle but firm, and she hummed a tune Maya remembered from childhood, a Spanish lullaby, older than the desert itself. "You're lucky," Gloria said, her tone softening. "No broken bones, just bruises, dehydration, a little fever. Rest a while. I'll keep an eye out for any trouble." Maya nodded, grateful but wary. She spent the rest of the day dozing on the cot, waking only for sips of water and spoonfuls of Gloria's spicy beans. The cook moved around the outpost with quiet authority, tending to chores, answering radio calls, always watching the horizon. That afternoon, Maya slipped outside, shielding her eyes from the brutal sun. The outpost yard was deserted, but she followed a faint set of hoofprints to the far side of the fence, where a patch of shade hugged the wall. There, behind an old water tank, she found Raven, head lowered, sides heaving, a fresh scrape running down his flank. "Hey, boy," she whispered, crouching beside him. "You made it. You saved my life out there." She checked his wound. Nothing too deep, but it needed cleaning. Maya tore a strip from her undershirt, dipped it in water, and gently washed the cut. Raven stood perfectly still, eyes never leaving hers. She stroked his muzzle, feeling a bond, silent and unbreakable, growing between them. She had to be careful. If anyone saw Raven, they'd call animal control, or worse. Her superiors might see him as a threat, something to be removed. She fed him a few stale crackers she'd found in the kitchen, whispering promises of freedom and safety. That night, as Maya lay awake listening to the rustle of wind through the broken eaves, she heard voices drifting in from the main hall. The agents had started talking about the spirit horse some claimed to have seen at night, a black Mustang that appeared when people were lost, only to vanish without a trace. Old Ranger Lopez swore he'd spotted the horse during a sandstorm back in '98. Another agent muttered about curses, about the borderlands being haunted. Gloria, overhearing the talk, entered the room and closed the door behind her. She leaned against the frame, arms folded. "You ever hear the legends, Maya?" she asked quietly. "About the Mustangs that protect the lost out here. My grandmother said they were angels with hooves, wild and free, never broken." Maya hesitated, wondering how much to reveal. I think sometimes we find help in the strangest ways, she said. Or maybe it finds us. Gloria studied her, eyes narrowed. You're hiding something. You don't trust the others. I get it. Not everyone out here is what they seem. A long silence stretched between them. Maya realized she needed an ally. There are things I can't explain yet. Not until I know who's on my side. Gloria nodded slowly. I've seen enough border politics to know when the truth's dangerous. Just know this. I keep secrets better than most. Maya relaxed. Just a little. The outpost felt less like a prison, more like a sanctuary. Fragile, temporary, but hers for now. She slept fitfully, Raven's wild eyes haunting her dreams, and the knowledge that safety was only an illusion clinging to her like the desert dust. Outside, the whispers about the spirit horse grew louder, even as danger crept closer. But for the first time in days, Maya allowed herself a sliver of hope. Maybe, with Gloria's help, she could find out why she'd been betrayed, and what secrets the desert was still hiding. The next morning broke pale and cold, streaks of sunlight bleeding across the desert as Maya struggled to gather her thoughts. Sleep had come in fits, every creak and distant coyote call reminding her that peace was temporary. The outpost, once a place of rescue, felt tighter now, a small island of safety surrounded by an ocean of uncertainty. Maya moved gingerly, her sides still sore, her hands careful as she checked her makeshift bandages. She knew she needed more than rest. She needed answers. What happened in the desert wasn't an accident. It gnawed at her. Daniel's cold eyes, Riley's sneer, the way her team had turned in an instant. She replayed it all, searching for missed details, any clue to their motives. She stepped outside, drawn by the morning hush. Raven was waiting for her, black coat shining in the golden light, as if he'd been carved from the shadows themselves. He nickered softly and pressed his head against her shoulder, grounding her with a gentle strength. For a few minutes, Maya forgot about the betrayals, letting herself believe she could still trust something in this world. Her routine became survival. Maya tended Raven's wound, kept him hidden from prying eyes, and slipped into the outpost only when she needed food or supplies. Gloria seemed to understand. She never questioned Maya's long absences, or the way she always carried a damp cloth and extra water outside. If Gloria noticed the Mustang's tracks circling the fence, she kept it to herself. That afternoon, as Maya cleaned out her battered backpack, left behind by Daniel's, probably because it looked empty, her fingers brushed something small and sharp inside a hidden pocket. She froze, heart thumping. With trembling hands, she drew out a plain black flash drive, its surface smudged and worn. She stared at it, dread pooling in her gut. Was this why they'd ambushed her? Why had Daniels left it? Did he even know she still had it? She scanned the outpost. No one in sight. The hum of the generator the only sound. She slipped into the tiny radio room, closing the door behind her. The computer was ancient, dusty keys and a flickering monitor. Maya plugged in the drive, nerves jangling, and waited as old files loaded onto the screen. Her breath caught. Dozens of folders, dates and initials, coded but unmistakable. She clicked through, piecing together the story. There were transaction logs, encrypted messages, route maps, all pointing to something big. She found emails between Captain Dalton Brooks, her supervisor, and names she recognized from the department, along with strange outside contacts, payments, drop points, instructions. The deeper she went, the clearer it became. Brooks was running a trafficking ring, using patrol sweeps to cover his tracks. Maya's team was involved, some by force, others by choice. A chill ran through her. This was why she'd been targeted. She'd gotten too close, maybe asked too many questions, maybe stumbled on the wrong patrol route. She snapped photos of the files with her phone, fingers shaking, then hid the drive under a loose floorboard near her cot. She left the room, careful to erase her digital footprints, but the paranoia was already crawling over her skin. Every agent's laughter felt forced, every sideways glance a threat. Was anyone else involved? Who could she trust? Was someone watching her even now? That night, as the wind rattled the windows, Maya confided in Gloria. The two sat by the outpost's old stove, sipping instant coffee, shadows dancing across the walls. "I found something," Maya whispered, voice low. "Evidence. It links Brooks and others. Trafficking, cover-ups. It explains everything." Gloria's eyes narrowed, but she nodded, not surprised. "I've seen things out here, Maya. Strange deliveries at night. Agents coming and going when no one's watching. I keep my mouth shut, but I always watch." Maya slid closer, lowering her voice. "I need you to help me keep Raven safe, and I need to figure out who else is involved before I make any move. If Brooks suspects I'm alive, he'll send people." Gloria put a hand on Maya's arm, her grip fierce. "You're not alone in this, but you need to be careful. The desert listens. It remembers." For the next few days, Maya and Gloria fell into a rhythm, gathering information, watching for signs of trouble, always keeping Raven out of sight. Gloria brought her stories of the old days, warnings about the dangers of speaking up, legends of the Mustangs who guided lost souls to safety. Rumors about the spirit horse grew. Some agents joked nervously. Others seemed frightened, whispering that the animal was a sign of coming trouble. One night, an agent named Vasquez swore he'd seen the Mustang staring through the chain link at midnight, eyes glowing gold. He left for another post the next morning, refusing to explain. Maya's bond with Raven deepened. Each time she sat with him, brushing his tangled mane or tending his wounds, she felt the tension slip away, if only for a moment. In Raven's gaze there was no judgment, no suspicion, only trust and acceptance. But inside the outpost, Maya's anxiety grew. She slept with her boots on, a flashlight and a kitchen knife under her pillow. Sometimes she'd catch a movement out of the corner of her eye, a shadow at the window, a voice just out of earshot. She started a list of names, writing them in tiny script in the margins of her notebook. Who she'd seen speaking to Brooks, who was on duty during suspicious nights, who looked away when things didn't add up. One evening, as dusk bled across the sky, Maya and Gloria stood by the fence watching the horizon. Raven paced restlessly, ears twitching. "When this is over," Maya murmured, "I want to see the desert without looking over my shoulder. I want to ride out with Raven just once and not be afraid." Gloria nodded. "You'll get that day. But first, you need to survive the night." In the distance, headlights flickered. Trouble was coming. Maya could feel it, like a storm building just beyond the ridge. The wind shifted just after midnight, carrying the distant stench of smoke and the faint, high whine of a car engine crawling up the old access road. Maya sat on the edge of her cot, nerves thrumming, boots already laced, flashlight in hand. Every instinct screamed danger. She pressed her back against the wall, breath steady, eyes locked on the shadows playing across the battered window pane. Gloria moved quietly through the outpost, making her nightly rounds. But tonight, she kept glancing toward Maya's room, her face drawn with unspoken worry. The uneasy peace they'd built was fragile, strung tight as a guitar string. Maya's chest ached from holding her breath, waiting for a sign, any sign, that she was just being paranoid. Then, a faint scraping outside, a footstep on gravel. Maya's heart leapt into her throat. She flicked her flashlight off, pressing herself lower, listening. Another footstep, then another, more deliberate, heavier than the wind. She felt more than heard, the shift in the air. Strangers moving in, the outpost no longer safe. She crept to the window, careful not to reveal her silhouette. 3 figures, faces obscured by black balaclavas, crept along the perimeter, rifles slung low, boots crunching softly. The lead man paused, gestured toward the outpost's back door. Maya counted 2 more by the supply shed, scanning the yard with night vision goggles. She darted to the kitchen, whispering, "Gloria, we have to move. Now. Trouble's here." Gloria's eyes hardened. She grabbed the old cast-iron skillet she kept handy and pressed a finger to her lips. "Where's Raven?" she whispered. "Out back, near the water tank," Maya replied. "I'll get him. You head for the north fence. Wait for my signal. We split up. We stand a chance." A crash shattered the silence. Front window, glass raining on the tile. Shouts erupted, boots pounding down the hall. "Move!" Maya hissed, ducking low, sprinting down the corridor as the masked intruders swarmed inside. She made for the back door, heart pounding so hard she could hear it echoing off the cinder-block walls. Gunfire barked behind her, sharp and deafening. Bullets punched holes in the drywall, plaster dust raining down. Maya dove behind the doorframe, adrenaline spiking. She peered out, a clear shot to the yard, if she moved fast. She yanked the door open and bolted, gravel skidding under her boots. A masked figure spotted her and shouted, "Hey, over here!" raising his weapon. Maya hit the ground, rolling behind a rusted generator. Bullets cracked overhead. Her hands shook, but she kept moving, crawling through the shadows toward the water tank. She called softly, "Raven, come on, boy." As if he'd been waiting for her, Raven emerged from the darkness, mane wild, nostrils flaring. He pawed the dirt, tense but ready. Maya grabbed a handful of his mane, whispering, "Good boy, just a little further." Shouts from the outpost, "They're heading for the fence. Don't let them escape." Maya slipped through a gap in the fence, Raven close behind. A flashlight beam swept across the yard. Maya ducked, pulling Raven into the deeper shadows behind a tumble of old oil drums. Suddenly, a cry split the night. Gloria, cornered by 2 intruders near the storage shed. One grabbed her arm, yanking her off balance. The other raised his rifle, barked, "Stay down, lady, or you're next." Rage surged through Maya. She lunged forward, grabbing a rock and hurling it at the nearest man. It struck his shoulder, making him curse and swing his weapon toward her. Before he could fire, Raven charged, hooves thundering, eyes blazing in the moonlight. The Mustang collided with the man, knocking him into the dirt. Maya sprang forward, tackling the second intruder as Gloria swung her skillet, cracking it across his head with a bone-rattling clang. The first intruder scrambled up, clutching his arm. Raven reared, pawing the air, and the man bolted, dropping his weapon. The others, seeing their comrades routed by a wild horse and 2 furious women, hesitated, just long enough for Maya and Gloria to drag themselves behind the oil drums. "Are you all right?" Maya gasped. Gloria nodded, face streaked with sweat. "I've seen worse bar fights," she muttered, managing a shaky grin. More shots rang out. Maya peeked over the barrels. One of the intruders was setting fire to the evidence room, flames licking at the broken window. "They're here for the flash drive," she realized. She sprinted for her cot, bullets chipping the doorway. She dove inside, hands scrabbling beneath the floorboard for the drive. She tucked it into her sock, heart hammering. A masked man lunged into the room, swinging his rifle like a club. Maya dodged, grabbed her flashlight, and smashed it into his knee. He howled, staggering. Raven burst through the open doorway, kicking up dust. His hooves connected with the man's side, sending him sprawling. Maya and Raven bolted, meeting Gloria in the hallway. Together they raced through the back exit, flames and smoke chasing them. The outpost, their fragile sanctuary, was burning. They sprinted into the desert night, Raven guiding them through the maze of arroyos and boulders. Shots echoed behind them, but the darkness swallowed their pursuers. After what felt like hours, Maya, Gloria, and Raven collapsed in a dry wash, lungs burning. Maya pressed her hand to Raven's side, feeling a hot, sticky patch. Blood. No, 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 stay with me, she pleaded, tearing a strip from her shirt to staunch the wound. Raven's breathing was ragged, but his eyes were clear. He nuzzled Maya's cheek, warm breath against her skin. Gloria sat close, shaking. You saved us, both of you, but we can't go back. Maya nodded, tears stinging her eyes. We'll make them pay, for everything. The three of them, woman, Mustang, and ally, watched the distant glow of fire against the desert sky. The outpost was lost, but the fight was only beginning, and Maya's resolve, like the wild horse beside her, burned brighter than ever. The sun was barely up, but the desert already simmered with heat as Maya, Gloria, and Raven trekked through a winding arroyo, pushing farther from the smoldering ruins of the outpost. The sky was painted blood red along the horizon, the day promising more violence than peace. Maya kept one hand pressed to Raven's wound, her heart twisting every time he stumbled. But the Mustang moved with determination, steady, loyal, unwilling to leave his friends behind. They followed the creek bed for miles, slipping between stands of mesquite and tangled cholla. Maya checked her watch. If they moved fast, they'd reach the abandoned mining canyon before noon. She'd chosen the place for a reason. Narrow walls, hidden approach, plenty of cover. It was the one place she could make a stand. By the time they reached the canyon's mouth, Maya was exhausted. Gloria's face was streaked with sweat and dirt, but her eyes shone with grim resolve. We can't keep running, Maya. They'll track us until we drop. I know, Maya said. That's why we make our stand here, and we don't do it alone. Earlier that morning, as they fled the burning outpost, Maya had sent a coded message to two agents she trusted, Luis Ortiz and Sherry Kim, both former medics, both with no love for Captain Brooks or his cronies. They were waiting when Maya and Gloria arrived, crouched behind a pile of rusted mining equipment, rifles slung over their shoulders. We saw the smoke, Sherry said, voice tight with worry. Heard the comms, too. Brooks is in panic mode. He's bringing everyone. Mercs, bought-off deputies, you name it. Luis clapped Maya's shoulder. We got your back. Just tell us what you need. Maya knelt, spreading out a rough map of the canyon floor. They'll come down the main road, looking to finish what they started. We use the rocks here, she tapped a choke point, force them into a bottleneck. Sherry, you take high ground with the radio. Luis, you cover the rear approach. Gloria, you stick with me and watch Raven. A rumble in the distance. A line of black SUVs crawling over the rise in a cloud of dust. Maya felt her nerves sharpen, her mind clearing. It was time. They took their positions. Maya crouched behind a boulder, Gloria and Raven close by. She could see Brooks, arrogant, barking orders as his men fanned out. He looked every inch the kingpin now, all traces of his lawman's uniform traded for tactical gear and mirrored sunglasses. Brooks shouted, "Fan out! Find them! I want Ramirez alive! The rest are expendable!" His voice echoed off the canyon walls, bouncing back at him like a curse. Maya's pulse thudded in her ears. She waited until the first mercenaries crossed the choke point. Then she gave the signal, a sharp whistle. Sherry fired a warning shot from above, bullets sparking off the rocks, sending the men scattering for cover. Luis pinned down 2 more as they tried to flank. Brooks ducked behind his SUV, cursing. "Where's Ramirez? Come out, Maya, let's end this!" Maya rose from her cover, voice ringing across the canyon. "You end it, Brooks. Turn yourself in. I have evidence. Everything. You're finished." Brooks laughed, cold and furious. "No, you're finished. I gave you a chance to walk away. Now you die with the rest of your bleeding heart friends," he signaled, and his men surged forward. Maya ducked as bullets whined overhead. She pressed against the boulder, firing back with Luis and Sherry, every shot meant to buy time. Suddenly, a Merc charged their position, gun raised, eyes wild. Raven reared, letting out a scream that echoed like thunder. The man froze, terror on his face, before Maya tackled him, wrenching the weapon free. Brooks cursed, firing wildly. Gloria tossed a smoke grenade, one of Sherry's from their old medic days, sending a cloud rolling through the canyon, sowing confusion. In the chaos, Maya moved. She crawled low, circling behind Brooks. He spotted her, drawing his pistol. "You think a horse and a few washed-up agents can stop me?" Brooks snarled. Maya stared him down, steady and unblinking. "No, but justice can." He fired. Maya dodged, felt the heat of the bullet slice past her ear. She tackled Brooks, grappling in the dust, his strength fueled by desperation. They rolled, trading blows. Brooks' fist cracked against her jaw. Maya's knee caught his ribs. He clawed for his gun. Then, with a rush of air, Raven charged, hooves thundering. The Mustang reared, driving Brooks back. Gloria dove in, pinning Brooks's wrist with surprising strength. Luis and Sherry rushed forward, rifles leveled. "It's over," Maya gasped, spitting blood. "You're done." Brooks spat in the dirt, face twisted in rage. "You think this is justice? You're naive, Ramirez. There's always someone willing to do the dirty work." Maya shook her head. "Maybe, but not today." They cuffed Brooks and his remaining men, collecting weapons and comms. Sherry called in backup, the kind that didn't answer to Brooks. Within the hour, a real Border Patrol unit rolled up, sirens cutting through the still air. The new team's commander took one look at Maya, Raven, and the pile of evidence, and knew everything had changed. The canyon was quiet again. The fight was done, but Maya stood trembling, adrenaline fading. She pressed her forehead to Raven's, breathing in his wild scent. "You did it," she whispered. "We did it, together." Gloria hugged her, voice thick. "The hardest part is over. Now let the truth come out." As the sun climbed higher, agents hauled Brooks and his men away, their power broken. The evidence was in the right hands. Justice, long delayed, had finally come to the border. But as Maya looked at Raven, she sensed a new journey was beginning. A road not marked by fear or betrayal, but by trust, healing, and hope. For days after the showdown in the canyon, a strange stillness hung in the air, a quiet that felt almost sacred. The border, so often the scene of fear and violence, was, for the first time in a long time, a place of recovery. Maya lay on a cot in a makeshift shelter, patched together by the new patrol team, her battered body wrapped in clean bandages. Every muscle ached, her face swollen from the fight, but her spirit felt lighter than it had in years. Raven lay in the shade of a nearby mesquite, his black coat shining dully, the gash on his side stitched and cleaned by Maya's own hands. Every day Maya visited him, limping across the dust to change his dressings, stroke his mane and talk to him in a low, grateful voice. The Mustang listened, his eyes wise and patient, his presence grounding Maya in the present moment. Gloria brought water and laughter, telling stories as she cooked over a small fire. Luis and Sherry checked on Maya each morning, bringing news from the outside world. The ring had been fully exposed. Captain Brooks and his mercenaries were in custody, and a federal investigation was underway. The old outpost was gone, but something better was rising from its ashes. The truth. As Raven healed, he became restless. Maya noticed the way he watched the horizon, nostrils flaring as the wind shifted, hooves stomping in the dust. Sometimes he'd whinny at the distant calls of a wild herd, a haunting sound that carried across the desert like a song of longing. Maya's heart clenched every time. She knew what it meant. One evening, as the sun slid low and the world burned orange and gold, Maya sat beside Raven, her legs tucked beneath her, fingers braided through his mane. The air was thick with unspoken words. Gloria sat nearby, humming softly as she mended a torn blanket. "You know he can't stay," Gloria said quietly, eyes never leaving her work. "He's not meant for fences." Maya nodded, her throat tight. "I know, but I keep thinking about how many times he saved me, how I would have died out there if it wasn't for him." Gloria glanced at her, smile gentle. "You saved each other. That's how it is sometimes. You hold on as long as you need to, and then you let go." Maya brushed a tear from her cheek, staring at Raven's strong profile. The Mustang flicked an ear, as if he understood every word. She rested her forehead against his, breathing in the scent of sweat and sage. "Thank you," Maya whispered, "for not giving up on me, for coming back when I was lost." For days, she put off the moment, finding excuses to stay near him, to linger just a little longer in his presence. But the wild always calls its own. Each day, Raven's gaze wandered farther. One night, Maya woke to find him gone, her heart lurching with panic, only to spot him on the ridge, silhouetted against the moon, watching a distant band of Mustangs running free. The next morning, Maya rose before dawn, wrapped herself in her old patrol jacket, and found Raven waiting at the edge of camp. She slipped a halter over his head, not to control him, but as a gesture, a reminder of the journey they'd survived together. She led him quietly into the waking desert, Gloria trailing behind with a canteen and a quiet blessing. They walked in silence, the world still except for the whisper of sand beneath their feet. When they reached the place where the earth opened into a wide plain, Maya stopped. Raven tossed his head, muscles rippling, eyes shining with anticipation. "This is where we say goodbye," Maya said softly, voice steady though her heart ached. "Go on. Find your herd. Be free." She unclipped the halter, letting it fall to the ground. For a long moment, Raven stood perfectly still, just watching her. Then he nuzzled her shoulder, a gentle, lingering touch that said more than words ever could. He turned, muscles gathering beneath his skin, and thundered into the dawn, mane flying, hooves pounding, the living embodiment of everything wild and unbroken. Maya watched him run, her chest tight with loss and pride. In that moment, she understood something her grandmother once told her. Real love is setting something free when it's time. She stood alone for a long while, watching as Raven joined the distant herd, his black coat a streak of midnight among the others. Gloria came up beside her, laying a comforting hand on her back. "You did right by him," Gloria said, "and by yourself." "I hope he remembers me," Maya murmured. "He will," Gloria replied, smiling. "You're part of his story now, just like he's part of yours." That night, Maya lay under the stars, listening to the wild Mustangs calling to each other, their voices braided with wind and memory. She felt the ache of goodbye, but also a new sense of wholeness. She was alive, she was free, and she had honored the loyalty that had saved her life. The days that followed were filled with gentle routines, healing, planning, and reflection. Maya helped rebuild what had been lost, tending to the wounded, comforting those still afraid, and reminding herself that trust, once broken, could grow back stronger than before. She carried Raven's story in her heart, determined to make something good come from the pain. And always, when the sun set over the borderlands, Maya searched the horizon for a flash of black, a reminder that courage and love, like wild horses, could never truly be contained. Life along the borderlands didn't slow down for long, not even after the corruption was exposed and the criminal ring broken apart. News traveled fast. The story of a Border Patrol agent betrayed by her own, rescued by a wild Mustang, then fighting back against an entire network of criminals. People whispered about Maya Ramirez, some in awe, some in disbelief, but many in gratitude. For the first time in years, the mood at the new outpost was lighter. Hope had found a foothold. Maya returned to her duties slowly, scars still healing, but she was changed in ways that ran deeper than flesh or bone. She looked at the world with different eyes, searching for the good hidden beneath the grit. Her old badge felt heavier now, its weight a reminder of responsibility and a promise. Never look away. Never let fear silence you again. It was Raven's memory that drove Maya to act. Each morning, she found herself standing by the edge of the desert, eyes scanning the horizon for a flash of black. She missed him fiercely, not just his strength or the wild freedom in his stride, but the way he had taught her about trust, about partnership without words, about saving and being saved in turn. It was Gloria who planted the seed of the next mission. You know, the Mustangs out there, they're part of our story too. Folks treat them like pests, but they belong here, same as we do. We owe them, Maya agreed. We owe Raven. He saved my life more than once. That day, Maya made a decision. She spoke with the new commander, a woman named Captain Holt, known for her sense of fairness and her willingness to listen. Maya proposed a new program, one that would protect the Mustangs roaming the borderlands, while also teaching agents and locals about their role in the ecosystem. At first, Holt was skeptical. Resources were tight, and some in the department still saw the wild horses as a nuisance, but Maya persisted. She shared Raven's story with the entire team, her voice steady, her words honest. She spoke about how compassion and courage could change a single life, or a whole community. She argued that protecting Mustangs wasn't just about the horses, but about building a culture of respect, empathy, and integrity on both sides of the border. Slowly, people began to listen. It started with a handful of agents volunteering to patrol on horseback, learning to move with the land instead of against it. A few local ranchers, once hostile to anything federal, joined the conversation, sharing knowledge about herds and migration patterns. A retired wildlife biologist came out of retirement, drawn by the excitement of something new. The change was small at first, but it grew. Maya and Gloria threw themselves into the project. They organized a Mustang Day at the new outpost, inviting families from nearby towns, tribal elders, and school children from both sides of the border. There were games, storytelling sessions, and guided walks to spot herds in the wild. Maya stood beneath the blazing sun, showing kids how to read tracks in the dust, how to move gently around horses, and how to listen for the signs of life, even in the harshest places. "What happened to your Mustang?" a little girl asked, eyes wide with wonder. Maya smiled, kneeling down to the child's level. "He went back to his family, out there in the wild. Sometimes, if you're quiet and patient, you'll see him running free. That's how it should be. The outpost itself became a canvas for the new era. Local artists painted a mural on the wall facing the highway, a vivid image of Raven rearing against a desert sunset, his mane swirling with colors, his eyes wild and kind. Below, in bold letters, the words, "Hope is wild, protect it." Maya watched the mural take shape, pride swelling in her chest. It wasn't just about Raven anymore. It was about the promise that every struggle, every loss, could become a story of hope for those who followed. Gloria took the lead in the kitchen, turning community meals into lessons about heritage and survival. She taught young agents to cook with what the land gave them: prickly pear, mesquite beans, wild herbs. She welcomed old-timers, newcomers, and children alike, turning the outpost into a place of laughter and belonging. There was still work to do. Old wounds didn't heal overnight. But something had shifted. One evening, as dusk fell and the desert cooled, Maya sat on the porch steps, watching children play tag beneath the Raven mural. Sherry and Luis shared a quiet drink nearby, swapping old stories. Gloria hummed as she washed dishes, the sound mingling with the chorus of frogs and distant coyotes. A teenage boy, nervous but determined, approached Maya, clutching a sketchbook. "Miss Ramirez, I drew something for you," he stammered, cheeks red. It's your Mustang." Maya took the drawing, heart twisting. It was Raven, bold and wild, racing beneath a sky full of stars. She blinked back tears and hugged the boy, feeling the circle complete itself. Raven had touched so many lives, even after he was gone. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means more than you know." Later, Maya stood alone beneath the mural, fingers tracing the lines of Raven's painted mane. She thought about everything she'd lost and everything she'd gained. She thought about courage, how it grew in the smallest places, how it took root in hearts willing to change. The border was still wild, still dangerous, but it was also a place of community now, a place where hope, once wild and rare, had learned to run free. Time slipped by, marked not just by seasons but by subtle transformations within the borderlands and within Maya herself. The story of Maya and Raven, once whispered in shadows, became something more, an inspiration for change. With Brooks and his ring gone, trust began to repair itself among the agents. Walls were patched, and wounds, both seen and unseen, slowly began to close. Yet for Maya, true healing meant more than personal recovery. It meant making sure the pain and lessons of her journey could light a better path for others. Captain Holt approached Maya one crisp morning, her gaze thoughtful. "You could take some time, you know. Rest. You've earned it." Maya smiled, shading her eyes against the rising sun. "Rest comes later. There's too much left to do." She found herself drawn into a new role, one that felt both daunting and necessary. With the department shaken, there was a hunger for something real, something honest. Holt asked Maya to develop a training program for new recruits. Not just drills and regulations, but lessons on trauma recovery, ethical decision-making, and above all, partnership. Not just with each other, but with the land and its creatures. They called it the Raven Protocol, and soon it became more than a catchy name. Maya taught rookies how to recognize signs of distress in others, how to support teammates without judgment, how to move quietly and respectfully through the desert rather than blundering in with arrogance and fear. She brought in Gloria to teach field cooking and survival, her lessons always peppered with jokes and old songs that made even the most hardened agents crack a smile. Most importantly, Maya incorporated everything she'd learned from Raven. She organized hands-on sessions where agents learned to observe Mustangs in the wild, tracking herds from a respectful distance, learning patience, humility, and trust. At first, some scoffed. What did wild horses have to do with patrol work? But after a few long walks under the blazing sun, watching a herd move with subtle signals and protective care, even the skeptics started to understand. "You're teaching us more than law enforcement," one young agent said, brushing dust off her boots. "You're teaching us how to be human." Maya laughed softly. Sometimes, that's the hardest lesson to learn. The Raven Protocol grew beyond the outpost. News spread to other border stations and even into the communities that once eyed agents with suspicion. Maya and her team hosted joint workshops with local tribes and townsfolk, blending knowledge of the land with the wisdom of people who'd lived there for generations. Kids learned how to identify tracks, how to offer first aid, how to respect the wildness in themselves and in others. Maya made time, too, to visit the families of other agents who'd survived the ring's corruption, the ones still haunted by what had happened. She'd bring small gifts, a sketch of Raven for a frightened child, a packet of wildflower seeds for a grieving spouse. She listened more than she spoke, offering comfort and connection without expecting anything in return. Those visits were never easy. Sometimes she saw her own fear mirrored in the eyes of others. The fear that justice was never guaranteed. The trust once broken was nearly impossible to rebuild. But each time she offered a hand, shared a laugh or a tear, she felt something inside herself knit back together. In those moments, Maya realized that legacy wasn't about the medals or the stories people told. It was about the lives touched, the burdens eased, the courage shared. At the outpost, a new culture blossomed. Agents checked on each other, not out of obligation, but because they understood how thin the line between strength and vulnerability could be. They took pride in small rituals, a shared meal at the end of a long shift, a group hike to watch Mustangs at sunset, planting wildflowers in the cracked earth around the outpost. The mural of Raven grew richer, each new visitor adding their own mark, a handprint, a memory, a silent promise. One evening, as the heat faded and stars pricked the sky, Maya found herself walking the quiet paths around the compound. She paused at the mural, tracing the painted lines of Raven's mane with gentle fingers. For a moment, memories surged. Cold nights, the sting of betrayal, the terror of being truly alone. But alongside the pain was something fierce and beautiful, the realization that she had survived, not because she was stronger or smarter, but because she dared to trust again, even when it seemed impossible. Gloria joined her, arms folded, gaze soft. "You never stop moving, do you?" "Not if I can help it," Maya said, grinning. "You know, people talk about legacy like it's a thing you leave behind. But I think it's the things you build every day, like you're doing here." Maya looked at her friend, gratitude swelling in her chest. "I couldn't have done it alone." Gloria squeezed her shoulder. "None of us ever do." Later that night, Maya gathered the newest group of recruits beneath the mural. She told them the truth, not just about the dangers of their job, but about the courage it took to admit fear, to reach out, to protect the vulnerable and the wild. She looked into their eyes, saw hope and uncertainty and the possibility of change. "The most important thing you can do," Maya said, "is to never forget the power of loyalty, whether it's between people or between a person and a wild horse. We save each other. That's how we survive." The recruits listened, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns and the fierce spirit that, like Raven, would run free long after their training was over. A year passed since the night Maya Ramirez first lay helpless beneath the desert stars, betrayed and alone, before a wild Mustang named Raven changed the course of her life forever. The borderlands transformed in that time. Where suspicion and silence once ruled, there was now cautious hope. The mural of Raven on the outpost wall, vibrant and alive, faced the road with fierce pride, a symbol for everyone who passed. Resilience and freedom could grow in the harshest places. Maya's days fell into a rhythm: early mornings, long patrols, community lessons, and the constant, patient work of building trust. Her body healed, and so did her spirit, though both carried the scars of what had happened. At times, the ache of loss returned, especially in the quiet before dawn, when she remembered Raven's breath on her cheek, the thunder of his hooves, the wild gleam in his eyes as he ran into freedom. But there was no regret. Letting Raven go had been the truest act of love she could offer. Sometimes, when the wind shifted, she thought she heard the echo of his whinny on the breeze, felt the warmth of his loyalty in her bones. He was part of her story, and she, impossibly, was now part of his. On the anniversary of her rescue, Maya woke before the sun. She packed a small bag with offerings: fresh apples, a battered field journal, a faded photograph of herself with Raven at the old ranger outpost. Gloria met her by the gate, hands tucked into the pockets of her apron. "Going to the canyon?" Gloria asked, voice gentle. Maya nodded. "I need to see it again, just to remember." Gloria smiled. "Tell him I said thank you." Maya set off across the desert, boots raising little clouds of dust, heart steady as the landscape opened before her. The air was cool, the silence deep, broken only by the occasional call of a hawk or the distant bark of a coyote. She walked for hours, past familiar markers: the bent mesquite tree where she'd hidden with Raven, the dry wash where she and Gloria had patched wounds and made desperate plans, the scarred boulder that still bore the marks of gunfire. By mid-morning, she reached the mouth of the canyon. It looked much as it had a year ago: ancient, wild, beautiful, and unforgiving. But this time, Maya didn't feel afraid. She moved with purpose, picking her way along the path until she found the spot where it had all changed, where she had chosen courage over surrender, where a horse had chosen trust over fear. She sat on the warm stone, pulled out her journal, and began to write. Words poured out: memories, confessions, hopes for the future. She wrote about the nights when grief nearly swallowed her, and the mornings when hope came crawling back, slow but relentless. She wrote about Raven, about Gloria, about the men and women she'd trained who were learning, one day at a time, to do better. As the sun reached its zenith, Maya heard something: a distant drumming, faint at first, then growing louder. She rose, heart pounding, scanning the canyon. There, cresting a distant rise, was a herd of Mustangs, manes flying, hooves striking sparks from the earth. At their head ran Raven, unmistakable and wild, his coat gleaming like polished obsidian. Maya's breath caught. She raised a hand, tears stinging her eyes. Juan slowed, breaking from the herd, trotting closer with cautious steps. For a moment it was just the two of them: woman and horse, survivor and savior, teacher and student. Maya offered an apple on her outstretched palm. Raven took it gently, his dark eyes searching hers. She rested her forehead against his, breathing in the old scent of sage and sun-warmed fur. "Thank you," she whispered, voice shaking. "For saving me, for showing me how to live free." Raven lingered, then stepped back, nostrils flaring. Behind him, the herd whinnied, restless to run. Maya understood. She let him go, watching as he rejoined the others, his stride strong, untamed. She watched until they vanished into the shimmering horizon, nothing left but hoofprints and memory. Maya gathered her things, leaving the apples and her journal tucked into a sheltered hollow. She made her way home with a new peace, her mind echoing with the lesson Raven had given her, one she carried back to her work, her friends, and the community she'd helped build. That evening, Maya stood beneath the mural at the outpost, lantern light flickering across Raven's painted form. She called the new recruits, agents, and townspeople together, sharing the story one more time, not as legend, but as living truth. Real survival isn't just fighting to live, Maya said, her voice steady. It's daring to trust, to let go, to stand for others, even when the odds are against us. Sometimes help comes in the form of a friend. Sometimes it comes as something wild and unexpected. But the only way forward is together. She looked out at the faces gathered before her, old and young, strangers and friends, the wary and the hopeful. Every act of courage, every bit of compassion, lights the way for someone else. We owe it to ourselves and to the ones who came before to keep that fire burning. The crowd stood silent, then a gentle applause rose, building into a wave of celebration and gratitude. The mural glowed in the lantern light, the Mustang forever rearing beneath a painted sky, unbroken. As the gathering dispersed, Maya lingered, tracing the outlines of Raven's mane with her fingertips. She knew the story would continue. Every time a Mustang ran free, every time an agent chose compassion over violence, every time a lost traveler was found and brought home. If Raven's story moved you, share it, because hope grows wherever we choose to protect and believe in each other. And so, under the vast Arizona sky, Maya's story and Raven's legend endured. In the wild places and the hearts of those who heard it, a single truth echoed. The hardest journeys lead us home, and the wildest hopes can transform the world.